Kia ora koutou. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our quarterly update on this fine October morning. I'm Chris Otten. I'll be your MC for today. We'll start off today's update with the karakia. Kia tauna, mana kitanga, e te nea naro, ki runa, ke runga, ki tēna a tato, kia mahea, te hua, makiki, kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aro, toi te reo Māori. Kia tuturu, ka whakamau, kia tina, huie, taiki e. Okay, so I'll give a quick outline of our agenda today. You have the next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I've also got to do housekeeping. I'm getting ahead of myself, my apologies. So if you could please make sure your microphones are off during the presentations. We'll ask for questions at key points and put your hands up or put. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we'll.
Are we here now?
Yep, can hear now.
Awesome, thank you. The joy of teams. Okay, so we'll kick off this morning with an update from our Chief Executive, Sarah Gillies, and then we'll move through into Taskforce program update. Following that, we'll have Paul Sullivan joining us to talk through the implementation of the MDAG Advisory Group recommendations. Then we'll have a new section for us for a Meet the Chair of our new Electricity Authority Advisory Group with Jamie Silk, and then Mark Herring will give us an update on the Power Innovation Pathway that we launched a couple of weeks ago. Following that, Ginny will give us an update on the industry training program, and then finally calendar view for our next quarter of project updates and engagements. So we'll kick off first thing with the update from Sarah. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
So been a really busy few months with a lot of developments going on. Would you like to give us a high-level roundup?
Yeah, sure. It has been a busy quarter since our last update, and busy for us, busy for everybody in the industry. If I sort of go back to February, we did some work kind of thinking about the vision, where we wanted to go and the things we needed to do to get to that vision. So we sort of talked about this vision of consumers having choice in accessing the energy they need now and in the future, so they and New Zealand prosper. And then this idea that we would be moving towards that vision with a kind of a multi-year plan over 3 horizons, short, medium, long term, to get to that vision. And I think, you know, that still holds true. That plan is anchored in a really strong focus on security of supply, which is obviously really important, but also competition and an efficient electricity market. We want to see innovation, and we want to see investment. So all those things are still important, but the last quarter has particularly sharpened our focus on some of those things. We are going to talk about the evolution of the market. So we've obviously got, as Chris mentioned, an update from Paul on how we're going with the implementation of the MDAG recommendations, and that sense of kind of moving to market 2.0, evolving what we've got now. I've said plenty of times that while the market served us really well, what got us to here won't get us to where we need to go. So that's a big focus for us.
That's great. I mean, events do kind of derail plans. We've had, as you mentioned, we've had quite a lot of going on in the market for the last couple of months. Could you kind of take us through what the authority's been doing on those events?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that's happened has been the Northland event, the tower collapse in Northland on the 20th of June. And obviously, you know, people will know that we undertook an investigation into that under Section 18 of the Act for the Minister, and the Minister published their report a couple of weeks ago. I think, you know, there are lots of pieces of the kind of review of that event. That's one piece of it, and that particular piece that we did focused really on the kind of system-wide approach to making sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again, and really boosting regional resilience. So that's that. In the process of doing that investigation, we also highlighted some other improvements that could be made. For example, we're seeking to have our information gathering powers expanded so that we can get more information in those sorts of situations. And I think the other thing that's really important to be aware is that's only one piece of our work in relation to that event. The other piece that we've got ongoing is a compliance investigation into an alleged breach of the code that will go through its proper compliance process. And that's being investigated at the moment. Ultimately, as with all compliance investigations, the authority has a process at the end of which it can make a decision to refer a complaint to the rulings panel, and the rulings panel has the ability to impose pecuniary penalties of up to $2 million, but also to make compensation orders as well. So we will keep people updated on the process of that investigation.
That was quite a high impact event for Northland, but it's also been generally quite stressful for the market through the winter as well, with low inflows. Could you talk through what we've been doing on that as well?
Absolutely. Everybody knows it's been a challenging winter for the system and for people who are, affected by that. I think, we've talked quite a bit about the fact that we know the system is changing and needs to change, but the pace of change needs to pick up given how quickly things are evolving. And so obviously we've seen wholesale spot prices come down, but we are doing a lot of work to kind of address the situation that we saw. So the big thing that we've done is launched the Energy Competition Taskforce with the Commerce Commission, and we've got some work underway in there. As Chris said before, Rob is on the agenda today to give you an update on that. So I'm not going to steal Rob's thunder, but we will run you through an update on the Taskforce work. I know a lot of people are really interested. We've certainly fielded a lot of questions from people, so I'm keen to be able to give you an update today, and we will keep you updated.
Cool. So that's kind of events that takes us back through to planning. So what of kind of forward view have we got of the work following those events? Yeah,
sure. I think we might have a slide to come. That's what I just talked about, so we can go on one more. So, and this might be a little bit small on some of your screens, but that's okay. We're going to kind of put more information out. I think the important thing to think about is that with everything that's been going on, we really need to prioritise our work even more. There is a huge amount of work that the authority could and should do, but we can't do all of it in a really short space of time. So just like all of you, we have to prioritise our work. And so we've done a quick, hard prioritisation around the next few months to make sure that we are delivering the most important things in the fastest possible time. So that prioritisation is focused on our kind of 3 strategic outcomes, which will be familiar to you. So we've got that vision on the side, and then the 3 strategic outcomes being affordability, efficiency, and security and resilience. So those have really guided us. Within each of those kind of strategic outcomes, we've got sort of priority work streams within them. So, we can talk a little bit more about that, but essentially within affordability, it's important that we've got effective competition and that we've got consumer care. We've got work in both of those spaces. It's important that we've got accurate and efficient pricing, and there's a real focus on innovation and distributed energy. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And within security and resilience, we've got to focus on effective risk management and regional resilience, among other things. So there they all are. Now, I said we have narrowed our focus. That still looks like a lot of work, right? It is a lot of work, but it's the most important things that we need to focus on in the short term. So these are our high priority pieces of work. And I'm not going to run you through all of them, but what I will say is that before Christmas, we plan to, and we will, hold industry engagement on issues and options for requiring gentailers to offer firming for PPAs as part of the task force. We'll be ready for voluntary trading for standardised flexibility products. We'll have an issues and options paper ready to be published in January for the 3 tariff and pricing initiatives within the task force. We're going to also be completing industry engagement on removing price and non-price barriers to the efficient connection to distribution networks, common quality requirements, consultation and engagement, and reviewing operational implementation of scarcity pricing. We are also going to have, ready for January, we're going to have the options paper on distributor generation investment thresholds as well, so for January. And we've talked a little bit about the power innovation pathway. We'll be able to announce kind of the process or the kind of submissions that have come through that and how those are going to be progressing. So that's a lot, but it was really important to me that we tried to narrow our focus quite a bit from what we did have, which was a much bigger work program, to get some some stuff delivered in a short space of time. That's not to say that all the other pieces of work that we've talked about aren't still, in the mix, but those are the priority ones that are getting the most focus right now. So there are other pieces of work that you'll be aware of, things like the Future System Operations Work Programme, improvements to intermittent generation forecasting. All those things are still happening, but the priority stuff is the stuff that we're really focused on. And we will keep reviewing our work programme and making sure that, as things happen, we continue to prioritise and make sure that the focus is on the right stuff.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. Yep, certainly got a busy time ahead. I think we've got a couple of minutes to take a question or two before we move into Rob. Are there any questions out there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I just should say too on this calendar, you again will be too small on your screens, but we're publishing that, so you'll be able to see that, and we'll keep that updated as well. But you can see there's a lot on there, which reflects the situation that we're all dealing with.
Thanks, Sarah. Hands up if you virtual hands up if you have any questions, or you can feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A. No, I think we are.
And I'm happy to take questions, come back to people separately. We've got quite a lot on the agenda today to update you on. I imagine you'll have quite a few questions on the task force, but as I said, I'm not going to steal Rob's thunder. He's up next. And there'll be other things too that we can update you on. So if you've got questions, fire them through. Even if you don't ask them now, I can come back to you later on them as well.
Absolutely, yes. Feel free to email them through to the comms team, send through the link. If you think of something afterwards, we can always pick it up in writing. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next we'll introduce Rob Bernot. He's online, joining us from online to talk about the work the Energy Competition Taskforce is undertaking. Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Chris.
Go for it, sorry.
Thanks, Chris. Kia ora koutou, everyone. So I'm here, as Sarah mentioned, to talk to you about the Energy Competition Taskforce. This is really the first opportunity we've had to engage with you as a group like this, but to be clear, we see it as the first opportunity of many. There will be a lot of opportunities to have conversations about this really important work over the next few months. So the Energy Competition Task Force is made up of the Authority and the Commerce Commission, with MB also sitting on that task force as an observer. I wanted to start by welcoming members of the other agencies involved in the task force on this call today. So we've got Dr. John Small, Chair of the Commerce Commission, who's one of the task force members. And we also have staff who have been supporting the task force, both from the Commission, Luke Archer, and from MB, John McCabe. So great to have them on this call, and really important that when you're considering your questions, you understand that all three members are in the room and we're all capable of answering those questions for you. So the task force was formed against the backdrop of August's very high prices. And what it was charged with was developing a rapid set of actions to improve the performance of electricity markets for consumers, whether that was new actions or accelerating things that were already in flight. What came out of the task force was 2 packages of work comprising 8 short to medium term initiatives. Package 1 is looking at enhancing competition, encouraging new generation into the market, and facilitating competition by retailers. Package 2 was looking at providing more options to electricity consumers to both manage their use and ultimately their cost of electricity. To be clear, given that we use the word short term, we are absolutely looking at whether any of these potential measures can have an impact by next winter, acknowledging the risks that we've all experienced this year of potential low hydrology situations. Can we move to the next slide, please? So I'm going to briefly take you through the work sitting in the packages, again acknowledging that this will be skating over at a high level and that we're happy to talk about it in more detail. So package 1, as I said, is looking at more ways to encourage new generation investment and more wholesale and retail market competition, which is both aimed at putting downwards pressure on prices, but also ultimately increasing resilience against future fuel shortages to the extent they could occur. To go to a wee bit of background, which will be very familiar to many of you, this is essentially about bridging the gap between the wholesale and retail markets. So for retailers, that's essentially about managing the volatility of the wholesale price on one hand, For those supplying to the mass market, to consumers, to smaller commercial operators. In the retail market, they're looking for relatively flat prices, often fixed-term variable volume contracts. So you've got volatility on one side, stability on the other, and what retailers are looking for is options to manage that price risk. For developers of generation, these days that's largely intermittent generation. What they're looking for is firming of that generation, so that if you're running solar or wind that doesn't operate all the time, you're still able to offer your customers a firm, reliable supply electricity anytime they want it. So a core source of that risk management and of that firming is the gentailers and hedge contracts offered by them, which are backed by flexible generation, which can run at any times. So that's kind of the background. The initiatives that we're then looking at on firstly, initiative 1A, we're looking at offering or requiring gentailers to offer firming for power purchase agreements, using that flexible generation to offer those contracts over the long term, which is potentially important to be able to then finance that new investment. The second part of the package builds on the work from MDAG in December last year that I expect the majority of you will be very familiar with in terms of offering standardized flexibility products, which ensures that retailers and large industrials then have access to those shaped hedges that allow them to ensure they can manage their price risk, particularly say on cold winter's nights where there is no wind blowing and no sun available for fueling that solar generation. That's proceeding on the basis that MDAG was contemplating, which is an industry co-design basis with a view to launching a voluntary product into the market as soon as possible. But it's really important that people are aware that we're developing a potential regulated solution in the background to that to ensure that should the voluntary solution not be successful, we can then come in and get that trading as soon as possible. Then the other things we're doing in that package is working on two potential backstops. Essentially, if we don't see the sort of changes that are needed, we want to ensure that we have the ability to respond very quickly and that the kind of measures that we could introduce that are deeper regulatory interventions are already well developed. I wanted to briefly talk to you at this point before moving on to package 2 about the risk management review. Again, many of you will be very familiar with that piece of work that we kicked off in December last year that has a significant overlap with package 1 of these task force options. So the risk management review was imminently releasing its investigation phase and then was going to move on to a policy phase. And to some extent, the task force has now taken over that policy phase, albeit we are still considering in the risk management review whether there are any further policy initiatives that the investigation phase points towards. But essentially what we see is that the risk management review has now pivoted to being a really core part of the evidence base that the task force is built on. It will also help with the task force specifically defining the problems that it's addressing, making sure that these initiatives are well tuned and targeted, and it will also help to provide criteria for the policy development sitting within those initiatives. So we see it as a critical input to the task force work in package 1 to help that work move faster and be more effective. And we're obviously happy to discuss that with any of you who have been involved in the risk management review or have an interest. Moving on to package 2. That's focused on providing businesses, households and industrials with more options for managing their electricity use and cost. For households particularly, given the experience people are having and potential for bills to go up, we want to make sure that consumers have more options. That goes from options at a very general level to make sure that consumers are rewarded for shifting their power use into periods where there is, or shifting their power use away from peaks, periods where power is less costly, to also ensuring that demand flexibility is adequately incentivized. And that's particularly looking at where you have consumers who are also producing, who have solar and potentially have batteries, and are able to inject power into the system at peak times, that they're properly rewarded for the benefits that provides to the distribution system and also for the value of those electrons going into the system. If they're worth a lot in the wholesale market, consumers should get some kind of proportional reward. And that's beneficial both to those consumers, but it's also beneficial in terms to the broader electricity pricing and affordability of the system. So it flows through to all consumers ultimately, because it should help to manage the investment cost of infrastructure, the peaking infrastructure we'd otherwise need to build in the networks and in the generation. The other thing we're looking at doing is considering industrial demand response and making sure that the market's responding with adequate incentives for that. We've obviously seen a bunch of really positive developments on that front in terms of some contracts with large industrials, and they were definitely helpful during that August high price period. What we're wanting to ensure is that there's no gaps, basically. If there is an industrial that is happy to provide demand response, and we do have another very high price period, we want to ensure that the market is providing the right signal to actually activate that response. Most importantly for you, we will be actively seeking industry input over all aspects of this program. There'll be various opportunities for you to contribute, and we're also obviously very happy to meet with you at any time to talk about what we're doing. Those opportunities have already started, so the co-design of the standardised flexibility products is happening with industry participants. The Electricity Advisory Group has already talked to the authority about a number of these initiatives and will continue to be involved. Can we please have the next slide? So this is the timeline. This is the first time we've had a chance to talk to you about this, so we're happy, of course, for you to consider it and then come back to us. But at a high level, what we're wanting to do is help you to see exactly when you get the chance to be involved and when decisions are coming. So this is very much the external facing timeline. Obviously, you can see that if there's a lot being published early in the new year, January, February, there will be a huge amount of board activity and task force activity in that November, December period, making sure that at a governance level, we're very comfortable with what we're putting out there and that you can have assurance that these things have been well tested and can then move at pace. We are just tuning up at the moment exactly what that December, January, February period looks like. We have considered what we can put out in December as well, but we are reluctant to give you early Christmas presents. In the past, it certainly hasn't been well received, and understandably so, to have consultations drop in the week before Christmas. So likely the majority of this, in terms of the formal consultation, is sitting in that January, February period. But as you can see on the program there is substantial target engagement prior to Christmas. The other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to packages, or to initiatives 1B, 1C and 1D, you'll see on them at the moment they don't have any code change decisions marked there. That's deliberate. In terms of 1B, obviously, we're hoping that voluntary trading will be successful, and 1C and 1D are backstops. But it's really important that you understand that those will be very actively monitored, particularly in terms of the performance of those products that are going out into the market. It's important that the backstops are credible and that we are considering on a very regular basis whether they are useful to introduce or not. So my expectation is that the board of the authority and the task force will be having regular information put to it. Likely initially we'll be looking at these things quarterly or looking at them on the basis of any indicators coming back from the market, either of success or of failure, to make sure that we are able to act as soon as possible if we're not seeing the change we need. So look, we're very much looking forward to working with our colleagues from the Commission and MB on these initiatives. To be clear, they have already started. We're not waiting, we are getting on with it, and looking forward to talking to you about them more over the coming months. I'll hold there, Chris, but very happy to take questions.
Awesome, thanks Rob. It's really comprehensive. I understand there are a few questions in the Q&A that you have access to there. If you flick through the Q&A bit, if you'd like to pick a couple of those.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I've got the spinning wheel of doom at the moment that is not telling me any questions. Oh, here we go. More a comment than a question. Disappointed to see the suggestion of imposition on retailers rather than looking at what initiatives are required to improve retail competition. I think it's really, so this is a question from Jonathan. I think it's important to see the task force measures as some particular things that are being prioritised. It's not the whole of the work programme. So it's not to say this is the only thing we're doing in relation to retail competition. What we are saying is we think it's really important that consumers have these options available to them and that those options are easy for them to access. So we are putting a framework around those package 2 options, but definitely want to assure you they're not the only questions we're looking at in relation to retail competition. There's a slightly alternative message from Neil Walburn saying he's enthusiastic about package 2. But the question is, do we feel we have adequate regulatory tools to encourage distributors and retailers to implement these changes in a timely manner? At this point in time, Neil, yes, we do. We are confident that we have adequate tools, but we're also very aware, as you'll see from the timeline for the Taskforce packages, that it's not just a case of putting code in place and then walking away and leaving it. There's always an industry response to code, and we're conscious that we need to work with industry and make sure that both our expectations are right, but that also we are helping them with any barriers they have and that we're testing how any implementation is occurring. A question from Brett Woods. Why is 1A limited to a single type of arrangement with new entrants? Will other approaches also be considered? Look, we're very open to any approaches, Brett, in terms of how you best enable wholesale competition and retail competition. What we're looking at doing is responding to a particular problem as we perceive it, and you'll see that there's a working paper meant to be published in January, which will help share with the industry our views as to exactly what that problem looks like and what this particular solution would achieve. But we are very conscious that industry will say, here are other things we could do, and that we're open to that feedback. But we are, in principle, committed to these initiatives as useful things to do. I think that goes to the standardized flexibility product in 1B as well, and that's important to acknowledge that hedge contracts are not the only way to manage risk, and while they have they've been used a lot by participants and have an importance to participants, it's really important that there's other methods of managing price risk are also developed. The authority is very focused on how do you develop demand response and make sure that that's a huge part of the toolkit, and there are a range of other things as well. So things like PPAs and standardized flexibility products, they work in concert with a range of these other options. Question from Toby, who talked about winter 2024 as a low hydrology situation. Absolutely, Toby, we agree it was a low gas situation as well. Apologies if that wasn't clear and you thought I was only focusing on hydro. Question from Karen, does the EA feel sufficiently resourced to deliver this large priority work program? Yes, we do. It's no question it is a large program, and we have spent a bit of time pulling the program together for precisely that reason, making sure that we're not underdoing the resourcing and that we give ourselves a really good shot of delivering this on time. We have also pulled in some specialist resource from the Commerce Commission and from MB, our fellow Taskforce members, to make sure that we're using their expertise and that they can complement what we've got. One of the things that we have done over the course of the risk management review is work much closer with the Commerce Commission than we ever have before in terms of tapping into their competition expertise. We've found that incredibly valuable and been very grateful for the level of input they've given, and those working arrangements are carrying over with the Commission, particularly on Package 1, and MB is leaning in very strongly on Package 2 as well. They have a lot of expertise in that area. Chris, am I still good for time, or do you want me to hold, knowing that I can answer some other questions to people either bilaterally or in another session?
I think we'll pick up further questions kind of offline, but we have got a record of them. There's some other questions we'll get addressed, but thank you for that, Rob. There's a really comprehensive update and really good Q&A session.
Thank you. And just for anyone who put a Q&A out there, if I slightly missed the point or something, apologies. I was processing it real time. Like I said, I'm really happy to have a slower conversation and make sure we get to the bottom of any questions or concerns you have.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Rob, and thank you everybody who put questions up there. That was awesome. Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to welcome Paul Sullivan, who's going to take us through the MDAG recommendations.
Hello, hi Chris, and hi to everybody online this morning. Look, I'm here today, as Chris said, to talk about the implementation of the MDAG recommendations. As you're probably aware, we've got significant work underway, but we're moving at pace. You'll probably recall that it was the end of last year, December 2023, that MDAG delivered its final report. This was an extensive piece of work, it had 31 recommendations in total, with a focus on how to strengthen the electricity market for a high renewables future. A few months later, in February 2024, the authority came out and published how we're going to implement these recommendations. Before I get into any of that, I'll just highlight three main points as an overview that came out of MDAG's work and that we've been focused on. So first of all, MDAG concluded that a wholesale market remains the best approach for the future. However, strengthening this is needed to improve price signals, provide market participants with better tools to manage risk, and to ensure that the spot price volatility is not magnified by competition issues. And of course, the fuel shortage in August and the subsequent high wholesale prices have reinforced the importance of this work. So I just jump to the next slide there. I just want to note that the authorities incorporated those 31 MDAG recommendations into our work program. We're taking a whole of authority approach to this. As I'm sure you're aware, the recommendations are broad in scope. But at the same time, we do want to focus on continuing the visibility and transparency around the progress that we're making on these, which is why we're keeping up publishing a quarterly dashboard on the progress, which I'll come to a bit later on. I'll just jump to the next slide, thank you. So of those 31 recommendations, we've got work in progress on 19 of them. In the past quarter, we've commenced work on some of these recommendations to strengthen transparency around price signals and around improving access to risk management tools. There's a few I want to just point out here in particular. One, which has already been mentioned, is that standardised flexibility products. Right? As you know, these are risk management contracts that provide the buyer with protection against high prices during times of high demand or when intermittent generation is low. These sorts of contracts are going to become more important as more of our generation comes from intermittent sources. It's already been mentioned, I think, that the authorities appointed an industry co-design group to develop a new standardised flexibility product. And the intention is to have a product being voluntarily traded from January 2025. We're also working on an outline of virtual disaggregation. Look, this is in progress, and although it's a backstop measure, designing the rules now will advance the work so that, if needed, it can be implemented quickly. So these two projects, I think as Rob just mentioned, are being accelerated as part of the Energy Competition Taskforce work program. We are continuing on other important measures to improve price signals and access to information about prices. One which we'll be aware of is the intermittent generation forecasting. Soon the authority is going to be consulting on how to implement our decision to introduce a hybrid forecasting model with a centralised forecaster. And the other, which is around hedge market transparency, these broadened hedge disclosure obligation or information requirements rather will take effect from the 30th of October this year. So the authority is going to publish additional information and insights on the contracts market to enhance transparency around prices, and hopefully this will lead to better risk management and investment decisions. There's another key recommendation I just want to note, which is information on the development pipeline. So we recognise, obviously, the importance of good information for the market to enable developers and participants to make better investment decisions. We're making ongoing improvements to the existing information we have to make it more available and accessible, but at the same time we're enhancing the scope and frequency of the information that we collect, and we're going to be publishing an updated dashboard in early 2025. Just the next slide, thank you. So as Sarah mentioned at the start, we're wanting to lay the foundation for Market 2.0, and MDAG's recommendations are obviously a key part of that. Market 2.0 is a wholesale electricity market that can meet consumer demand in an increasingly renewables-based electricity system. So we're really preparing for the future market while strengthening the current one. As you know, the electricity system is evolving rapidly. We've got an increasing share of intermittent generation. We're moving to a system with more distributed energy resources, and there's going to be more participants. As this economy electrifies, we've got to become a lot smarter about how the electricity system meets this demand so that consumers can get electricity at the lowest possible cost. Adopting new technologies is a key part of this to help enable consumer choice about how they manage the cost and the use of their electricity. So as I mentioned at the start, we'll be publishing a dashboard. It's a quarterly dashboard on our progress against these MDAG recommendations, probably at the end of October or early November. And this will cover the latest quarter, so July to September, and that builds upon the quarterly dashboard published previously. I'll now take any questions. Just keep in mind that there are 31 recommendations, and so I may have to come back to you on some of them, but I'm happy to take any questions from online.
Thank you, Paul. So feel free to put your hand up if you have a question for Paul, or if there's anything in the Q&A.
Question from Joshua. Does the authority have any ability or willingness to work towards improving visibility of the gas market?
Sorry, just repeat that, please.
Question from Joshua. Does the authority have any ability or willingness to work towards improving visibility of the gas market?
So I think I can pick up that one, to be honest. So we are working at the moment on enhancing thermal fuel disclosure for the market. So that will include coal, gas and diesel at the moment. We're working through the policy options we have at the moment, and we'll be putting something out very soon. No other questions? Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Paul.
Good.
Cheers. Moving through. Okay, so we're on to the next part of our slide, which is a new one for us. We're kind of going to introduce key people and groups that are linked to the authority. And for this one, we're going to introduce Jamie Silk, who's chair of our new Electricity Authority Advisory Group. So our advisory groups play a key role in providing independent advice to the authority. We've had a number of advisory groups over the years, all providing valuable input to us on our work. The Electricity Authority Advisory Group represents something new for the authority, a bit of a new approach for us. It was established around July of this year with a purpose of bringing independent thinking, diverse voices and advice to the Electricity Authority's programmes of work, providing input on more obvious things like proposals for code amendments and regulatory adjustments, but also challenging the authority's ideas and approaches. It offers us a more frequent, agile and versatile way of seeking early, direct and well-informed feedback and advice from a range of stakeholder perspectives. As you'll hear from Jamie Silk, the chair for the group, there's a great depth and breadth of diversity for the membership of the group, ranging across both industry and consumer perspectives. The group is already working at pace and adding value to our thinking with a range of engagement modes already in use. I'll pass over to our group chair, Jamie Silk, who's joining us online, to tell you more about it. Hi, thanks, Jamie, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Kia ora, thanks for that, Tim. As a group, we're also excited and looking forward to this opportunity to support the EA at this time of more frequent, flexible and agile engagement. It's my pleasure to introduce a fantastic group of members. If we could flick to the next slide. As you can see, we've got a really good breadth of experience in the team. We bring strong hands-on customer focus around industry, commercial and consumers, and that's including the vulnerable, as well as insights on Te Māori perspectives. Within the more traditional electricity sector value chain, we've got good representation from the long-established participants, as well as more recently emergent business models. And you'll also see there's some good geographic and regional diversity in there. And finally, it's great to have both strategic insights from board levels and executive level members and people with really deep subject expertise, both within the sector and within the consumer's needs. Just wanted to add a few words on how we'll be operating. We're a large panel, as you can see, of 26 members, which will be split into specific subgroups as we look at items on the work programme. There'll also be some more agile approaches around engagement to try and give that flexible and early stage and frequent feedback that Tim spoke about a few minutes ago. We've got two groups up and running, one working on parts of package 2 that you heard from Rob earlier, specifically the distribution peak injection and time variant retail feed-in tariffs work, and a second group that's just formed to support the standardised flexibility products work that was part of package 1 that Rob mentioned. Group membership and the brief minutes of discussion will be published, as is the normal EA course of practice. As we look ahead, with the work programme now published that you saw a few minutes ago, we'll be working with the EA to establish which subgroups are needed to support that, what the time of that work will be, and also will there be other agile engagement processes, and we'll be iterating to make those as effective as possible. So I'd anticipate that when we get to the December quarterly review, you'll probably hear more on our contribution to that work. So I'll just hand back to Chris in case there's any questions.
Thanks, Jamie. Do we have any questions for Jamie on the EAG? Anything coming through chat or hands up? Let's give it a minute, give people a chance to type. No? I think we're good there. Thanks, Jamie. That's a really good overview of the work and looking forward to getting the insights from the advisory group.
Our pleasure.
Cheers. So for our next item, we're going to slightly rearrange the agenda. We're going to move through to Ginny now to give us an update on our industry compliance and training program. We'll move back to pick up Mark afterwards. Good morning, Ginny. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. So can you give us a quick update of where we've been going with the program recently?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So kia ora koutou. I'm Ginny Murray and I'm the Principal Compliance Advisor in the compliance team here at the Electricity Authority. My primary role is setting up the compliance education program for the industry. So let me start with an overview of the program and what I have talked about previously in the update meetings, what we have delivered and what is coming up. Previously in these updates, I have discussed our compliance strategy, which has covered off our guiding principles and our compliance tools that range from educating and assisting our participant to comply from where the risk is presented as minor through to laying a complaint with our rulings panel. I've also talked about running surveys in the October update meeting last year, and that we also ran a second, more in-depth survey in February of this year. These surveys have helped feed into the education program being set up and what has been developed over this year and also next year. But we are always interested in hearing from stakeholders. So if you do have any suggestions or ideas on what you would like to hear from us, you're always welcome to email me at compliance@ea.gov.nz. We do want to ensure we are delivering what is needed when and in the format that the industry is wanting. Examples of the so as a result of the feedback and surveys, we have actually identified a number of topics which we have started delivering on in our education program. Examples of this are the 2 forums that we have delivered for the auditors and also an MEP and ATH forum earlier this year. We've also delivered a webinar on the EIE P50 protocols, and we've also completed an online Q&A session between the auditors and the registry manager. We're also currently planning a registry manager's course. This will be a 2-day training course in Auckland held in the end of November. This course will be designed for beginner participants in the electricity industry or for individuals who wish to gain a high-level understanding of how the industry works. It will cover fundamental concepts and principles relating to the industry, looking at industry process into operational practice and regulation. Training scenarios will be developed by the registry and authority to allow for a more interactive and engagement learning process, where real-life industry scenarios can be analysed and discussed in the context of course material. By addressing specific cases or problems, attendees can gain a practical insight and solutions that can be applied directly to their work or interest in the electricity industry. Places are limited, so we do urge interested parties to register today with compliance@ea.gov.nz by the 24th of October this month.
Thanks, Jean. What else have you got coming up in the program?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Chris. We do have a bit on at the moment aside from planning the registry manager's course. Some of the feedback earlier this year we received is that there is a desire for case studies to be published. On the slide you can see case studies which have been published earlier this year, and these are located on our website, and also what is coming up. We also highlight them in the market brief when these are published, but another thing we will add in moving forward is actually looking at the investigator to also run a half-hour webinar on their published case study. So this will give the industry a chance to listen to the investigator and hear their discussion around their case study. I'll also just add that these case studies are anonymised, so people cannot identify who it is about. But apart from giving the investigator a chance to discuss it, it will also provide an opportunity for the industry to ask any further questions around that case study. So we're looking to start that this month. We're also publishing guidance for the industry as well. So you can see what we have published this year already and what are upcoming publications. If there's any particular guidance you would like to see us update or publish, please let me know and we will see what we can do about that for you. Fine. We're also working on the consumer care obligations, which will be made mandatory on the 1st of January next year. Work is carrying on around this, which will cover updating our authority website to clearly outline what the new obligations mean for both retailers and for consumers. This will have resources located on the website that will have fact sheets, answers to frequently asked questions, what it will mean if the obligations are breached, including a dedicated customer concern form. We will also set up an 0800 number and an email address for both retailers and the consumer to contact us if they have any questions or concerns around the consumer care obligations. We will also run 2 industry webinars later this year in December. I will send out details later this year in our market brief and website news for you. But you can see I've got 2 noted on there already, one on the 9th of December at 2:30 p.m. and one on the 12th of December at 10 a.m. So do mark that down on your diaries if you are interested.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ginny. It's a really great update. Are there any questions for Ginny on the education programme?
Dale would like to know, where will you publish the case studies on your website?
Yeah, so if you go to our website and just type in case studies, a case study link will come up for you, and that will detail all of the case studies that we have got published. That's it. I just want to remind people that if you are interested in our registry managers course, please do email me at compliance@ea.govt, because we do have a limited amount of places for that, and we do expect that they will fill up pretty quickly. It's over the 26th and 27th of November at Clifton's in Auckland. We will add you into the list of people that we have that are expressing interest in this course. It is highlighted already on our website that went up yesterday, and more details will come out next week in Market Brief.
Awesome. Thank you, Ginny. Really good update. Cheers. Okay, and taking a step back in the agenda now, we'll introduce Mark Herring to talk to us about some other new developments at the authority. Mark's our GM for Corporate and Market Services. He's going to talk to us about the launch of our new innovation pathways. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and kia ora, everyone. Really great to be here with you. So, as Chris was saying, I cover our corporate and market services function in the authority. That's both our internal support services as well as our external market services, such as our market operations service providers. But as Chris was saying, today I'm here to talk to you about a new initiative that we've launched, the Power Innovation Pathway. So, we launched the Power Innovation Pathway on the 17th of September. And the goal of it is essentially to accelerate innovation in New Zealand's electricity sector. We've had a really great response. The first entries into the pathway started landing within 2 hours of the launch. And since then, we've been averaging 1 new application every working day for the last 3 weeks. So it's definitely kept us busy, but it's also a really good indication of the level of innovation happening out there across the sector and the level of appetite for support and guidance when it comes to regulatory issues. So the pathway, going into a little bit more detail, it serves as a clear entry point for innovators to engage with the authority. That helps them navigate regulatory challenges and unpick any uncertainty or ambiguity they might be experiencing. Provides an accessible, structured approach and process for innovators to come to us. It's essentially the front door to the authority for innovation. Seeking to address any real or perceived regulatory barriers that people might be seeing there. And it also helps us at the authority to really keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening out there at the cutting edge of innovation across industry for all all stakeholders, especially those who haven't traditionally been able to access regulatory support or guidance from the authority. So I've mentioned we've had a lot of great interest in the pathway to date. We've had over 20 applications, and there are a lot of folk out there doing fantastic work to help consumers change how they engage with their electricity, how they use it, when they use it. And that work's not just about providing consumers with more accessible and more affordable electricity. It's also about building local solutions that provide regional resilience and security of supply for consumers. And that's really important for when the unexpected happens. So as we're seeing more and more fantastic solutions come through, we'll be working with stakeholders across the region, particularly in areas such as Southland, Tairāwhiti, Northland, and making sure that this innovation is supported and enabled where consumers need it most. So, as I mentioned, the pathway opened on the 17th of September. It's open and will remain open 24/7, 365 days a year. So at any point, anyone can put in their application. However, if we jump onto the next slide, we'll be considering any applications that come in before the 18th of October for being prioritised for additional support, pilots, trials. What that might look like is just ongoing support and advisory from our subject matter experts here at the authority. It might look like supporting specific trials. It might look like regulatory exemptions. It might look like what some people refer to as a regulatory sandbox. So while our pathway process remains open, any applications that we receive before this date, we'll be looking to wrap around additional support and see how we can really get things moving across industry in the near future. So please encourage any innovators out there that you know to apply and to think about whether this pathway initiative might be helpful for them. So the first step really is on our website. There's a short form. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to complete. If you were to print it out, it would be probably 2 sides of an A4 sheet of paper. So that's the first step. If there is anyone out there you know that might benefit from this, please send them our way.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. It's a really big change to the way the authority kind of interacts with the industry and looks for ideas, and really looking forward to see what comes out of it.
It is really exciting.
Yeah, are there any questions out there for Mark? No, just wait, give people a chance to type on the Q&A, or if you want to jump in and put your hand up, I'm more than happy to take an online question. Or stunned silence processing the idea. Awesome.
Or opening up their website to put in applications.
Even better. Awesome. Thank you very much, Mark.
Great.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. That's the main parts of our update today. So we'll have a forward view of the next quarter. If you could jump to the next slide, please. So you'll have seen this briefly when Sarah spoke at the beginning. This is the kind of next 6 months or so of our public engagements. We've color-coded the different blocks to kind of highlight which work stream of our work program these items of work are in. These are only the high priority items. We do have some other work which is progressing around this work that we'll be engaging on from time to time as well. Some of it we've discussed as part of today. We'll be putting this up on our website. It should be going out today, I believe. Yep, just had a thumbs up from comms, definitely coming out today. So you'll be able to see this in a bit more detail. It's probably quite hard to see as a slide on this presentation for you. Do you have any questions on this? Probably it's a bit much to take in. Bear in mind, if you want to sit back and think about this, mull it over, more than welcome to email in with questions that we can answer in writing. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for taking your time out today. We've moved a little faster than expected, but give you a bit of time back in your day. Please remember you can submit questions in the chat, or you can email questions through to us, and we'll now close the session with a short karakia. If we have that up on the screen, so if those that want to. Kia whakaria te tapu, kia watea ai te ta'ara, kia toriki whakataha ai, kia toriki whakataha ai, haumei hui ta'ikie. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.